Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to talk about something that usually sits in one of two very distinct buckets in our heads.
Right.
Bucket number one is, the Disney bucket, the fairy tale, the soulmate, the whole happily ever after thing where the credits roll and everything's perfect.
And bucket number two is the divorce court bucket.
Yeah.
The statistics, the legal contracts, the arguments over who gets the toaster.
Exactly. It's either magic or it's a lawsuit. But the research we've pulled for today, and we're focusing on a really old philosophy called Vivaha Sanskara, it suggests that marriage shouldn't be in either of those buckets.
Whoa.
In fact, it says if you put it in the fairy tale bucket, you're setting yourself up for a pretty miserable time.
It's so true. The source material we're looking at today offers this really radical shift in perspective. It argues that the purpose of marriage isn't actually happiness, not in the way we usually think about it.
Which is a terrible opening line for a wedding toast, by the way. May you not be happy.
It would not go over well with the bridesmaids, no.
No.
But the core concept here is that marriage is fundamentally a school.
A school.
An educational institution. The text defines it as a place for the soul to learn lessons that it simply cannot learn while it's single.
And this was the hook for me, because if you treat marriage as a school, then the metrics for success just change completely.
Totally.
We usually ask, is this relationship making me happy right now? And if the answer is no, we panic. We think it's broken.
Right. But this philosophy asks a different question. It asks, is this relationship teaching me something?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, even if the lesson is, painful, then the marriage is succeeding.
There is a quote from the source that I underlined 3 times. It says, if the view of Vivaha Sanskara is that your marriage is a school for your soul, then no marriage is an unsuccessful one as long as you have learned something from it.
It's so liberating when you think about it. It just takes all the pressure off of being perfect.
Yeah.
It means that the friction, the arguments, all the rough patches, those aren't signs of failure. They're just, they're exams.
So today on the deep dive, we are going to audit this class. We are going to look at the campus of marriage. We're going to open up the syllabus to see exactly what subjects you're enrolled in. And spoiler alert, they are harder than calculus.
Way harder.
And we are going to talk about graduation.
Which is the part most modern people miss. You're not supposed to stay in this school forever.
Okay, so let's start with context. The School of Marriage sits in a very specific place on the timeline of life, according to these texts. It's called Grihastashrama.
Yes, Grihastashrama. And that translates to the householder stage.
Yeah.
But to really get it, you have to look at what comes right before it.
Okay.
The first stage of life is brahmacharya, which is the student phase.
So this is what, your childhood, teenage years, maybe early 20s?
Exactly. And think about what that phase is like. It is, by necessity, very self-centered.
Yeah.
You are acquiring knowledge for yourself. You're building your body, your career, your identity. You decide what you eat, when you sleep.
Right. If I want to order a pizza at midnight and watch bad movies, I just do it. It's all about me.
Precisely. But then you enter Grihastashrama. And the text describes this transition not as a destination, but as a bridge.
A bridge.
And this is where modern culture gets it so wrong. We treat marriage like a parking spot. You drive across the bridge of your youth, you find your person, you park the car, and you say, okay, I've arrived, now entertain me.
And then 5 years later, you're sitting in the car screaming because you're bored and the air conditioning is broken.
Exactly. The philosophy says, don't park on the bridge. You were meant to cross it. It's a compulsory, transformative phase.
Yeah.
It's a working phase. The text calls the environment of marriage a fertile ground.
But fertile for what? Because when I hear fertile ground, I'm thinking, flowers and picnics. But the source material lists 3 things that this soil is supposed to grow, and honestly, they sound like a boot camp.
They are a boot camp. The 3 qualities are tapasya, titiksha, and seva.
Okay, let's break these down, because I think this is where the school analogy really hits home. First up is tapasya. The translation here is discipline or austerity.
But a better way to think of tapasya is heat. In physics, friction creates heat.
Right.
In this spiritual framework, that heat is necessary to burn away impurities. When you're single, there's very little friction. You control your environment.
It's the path of least resistance.
It is. But marriage is a friction machine.
Yeah.
You bring your habits and your preferences and you just slam them into someone else's. You want the window open, they want it closed. You want to save money, they want to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
That annoyance you feel,
Mm.
that heat rising in your chest, that is tapasya.
So, wait. You're saying that when I'm grinding my teeth because my partner loaded the dishwasher wrong, which is clearly an act of aggression, that isn't a problem. That's the point.
That is the entire point. That friction is the curriculum. It's designed to sand down your rough edges. I mean, if everything went your way all the time, you would never grow. You'd just be a spoiled child in an adult's body.
Okay, so the heat is intentional. That makes sense. And that leads to the second quality, titiksha, which translates to patience.
But patience is a bit too passive. We think of patience as just, waiting for something to be over. Titiksha is closer to endurance or forbearance. It's the ability to withstand the heat of tapasya without exploding.
It's like thermal tolerance.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
If you have low titiksha, the moment things get uncomfortable or hot, you crack. You yell, you shut down, you run away.
Right.
The school of marriage forces you to increase your thermal tolerance. You learn to hold space for someone else's bad mood or their mistake or just their otherness without losing your own center.
It's resistance training. You're just doing reps of not freaking out.
And that builds a strength you just can't build alone. You can't learn titiksha on a mountaintop by yourself. You need someone there to annoy you.
So my partner is actually a spiritual service provider, specifically providing the service of annoyance.
In a way, yes. Which brings us to the third quality, seva, selfless service.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here a little bit. Service can sound, well, a little subservient. It sounds like losing yourself.
I see that. But remember where we came from that student phase, which was all about me.
All about me.
Seva is the antidote to that selfishness. It's the active practice of we. It's not about being a doormat. It's about recognizing that you are part of a unit. When you wake up at 3 a.m. to comfort a sick child, or when you do the taxes even though you hate it because it helps the family, that is seva.
It's the practical application of getting over yourself.
Exactly. It shifts your center of gravity from your own ego to the well-being of the relationship.
Okay, so we have the environment. It's a high-friction bridge designed to generate heat, test your endurance, and force you to serve something bigger than yourself. That sounds intense.
It is intense. That's why it's a school.
So if that's the campus, let's look at the classes. The source material outlines a pretty specific curriculum of marriage. There are 4 main subjects on the syllabus, and subject number 1 is the heavyweight champion of the world.
The ahamkara, the ego.
The text calls it the I maker.
Yes. The ahamkara is that psychological construct that just screams, I am distinct, I am important, I am right.
And marriage seems specifically designed to put the ahamkara in a cage match.
It is an assassin for the ego. The source describes the coursework here as the sacrifice of the ego. Think about it. You can't have a true union if 2 massive egos are fighting for oxygen in the same room.
Right.
It's just simple physics. 2 objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time.
So one of them has to shrink. Or
Both of them have to become malleable. The class you are taking every single day is, can I suppress my need to be right in order to be connected?
that is the hardest test in the human experience. I think most of us would rather be right and miserable than wrong and happy.
Oh, absolutely. The ego would rather burn the whole house down than admit it made a mistake. But the school of marriage forces you to confront that. Every compromise you make, from what movie to watch to whose family to visit for the holidays, is chipping away at that rigid rock of the ego.
That's so interesting because we usually frame compromise as losing. You know, I wanted Italy, we went to Florida, I lost. But this frame says, no, you sacrificed the ego. You passed the test.
Exactly. You're polishing the gem.
Okay, let's move to the second class. This one feels a lot less spiritual, at least on the surface. Artha.
Artha. This is the management of resources. So wealth, career, home logistics.
Yeah, see, this is where the romance usually dies. Sitting down to do a budget or arguing about the electric bill doesn't feel very holy. It feels like a chore.
But the text argues that Artha is a profound spiritual duty. In the householder phase, you are the economic engine of society. You're not just a monk meditating in a cave. You are supporting children, maybe aging parents, the community. You are a steward.
So the spreadsheet is sacred.
In this context, yeah. It turns financial management into a values exercise. When you fight about money with your spouse, you aren't usually fighting about the math. You're fighting about values. What do we care about? Security, adventure, status.
That's so true. It forces you to align your vision. So it's not just paying bills, it's resource management for the collective good.
Correct. It teaches you that resources aren't just for your personal toys anymore. They're a tool for the family's well-being. And that is a massive shift in maturity.
Okay, class number 3. This is the one everyone assumes is the only point of marriage until they actually get married. Dharma, comma.
Yes. Comma. Desire, pleasure, passion.
But it's hyphenated. Dharma, kama.
That's a crucial distinction.
Right.
Dharma means righteousness or duty. So this translates to righteous desire.
Which sounds a little like fun with rules.
It does sound restrictive, but it's actually about channeling. Think of raw desire lust. Passion is fire. If you let fire run loose in a forest, it's a wildfire. It destroys everything. It's erratic.
But if you put it in a fireplace.
It warms the home.
Yeah.
It cooks the food. It becomes the center of life. That is Dharma Kama. The school of marriage is not a monastery. You aren't supposed to kill your desire. You're supposed to channel it into the relationship to create bonding, intimacy, and joy.
So it's validating that pleasure is part of the curriculum.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's responsible enjoyment. It's learning that intimacy isn't just about self-gratification, again, going back to that student phase,
Yay.
but about connection. It's the glue that holds the friction-filled bridge together.
I like that image. The friction tests you, but the kama, the desire, holds you together while you're being tested.
Exactly.
Then that brings us to the final class, Sahadharma.
Sahadharma. So saha means together. Dharma means path. So walking the path together.
This sounds like the group project portion of the semester, and we all know everyone hates group projects.
Because in a group project, you lose control. You have to rely on someone else. But Sahadharma is the mastery of a shared destiny.
How is that different from just, being married?
Well, a lot of couples engage in what psychologists call parallel play. It's like toddlers. They're in the same room, playing with different toys, just ignoring each other.
Oh, wow.
You can be married for 30 years and just live parallel lives. Roommates who share a tax return.
Right. You do your thing, I'll do mine, see you at dinner.
Exactly. That is failing the class of Sanatana. Passing this class means coordinating your wills. It means you aren't two individuals negotiating a treaty. You are one entity moving toward a shared goal. And it requires a level of communication and attunement that is incredibly difficult.
It's the difference between two people paddling a canoe in different directions versus paddling in sync.
Yes. And when you get that sync, that's Sahadharma.
So that is a heavy course load. You are battling your ego, you are managing resources, Artha, you are channeling desire, Dharma Kama, and you're learning unity, Sahadharma.
It's exhausting just listing them.
It is. And this leads to the most important question. In any normal school, eventually you finish. You get the diploma, you throw the cap in the air, and you leave. Does the School of Marriage have a graduation day?
It does. And this is the part of the philosophy that really challenges our modern Western narrative. The text explicitly says the goal is to pass out of the institution.
Pass out, meaning graduate, not faint from exhaustion.
Although that might happen too.
Yeah.
Yes, graduate. The destination is the next phase of life.
Vanaprastha.
Vanaprastha. Now, I looked this up, and the literal translation is retiring to the forest. Which sounds nice, but I don't think my 401k covers a forest retreat.
Historically, it might have been literal. But psychologically, it represents a massive shift in priority. Think about the householder phase. It's defined by activity. Doing.
Raising kids, building careers, accumulating wealth, fixing the roof. It is a grind.
But you aren't supposed to grind forever.
No. Graduation happens when those duties are substantially fulfilled. The kids are grown and settled. The career is winding down. The whole building phase is over.
This is what we usually call the empty nest. And in our culture, we treat the empty nest like a crisis. Parents get depressed. They look at each other and say, "Who are you? What do we do now?"
Right. Because they think the job is gone, so their purpose is gone. But this philosophy reframes the empty nest not as a loss, but as a promotion. You have graduated. You finished the grueling classes of Artha and parenting. You survived the friction.
So what is the new job description in Vanaprastha?
Wisdom, contemplation. The relationship pivots. In the householder phase, you're often looking face-to-face, negotiating, arguing, working on the relationship. In Vanaprastha, you stand side by side, looking out at the spiritual horizon.
So you don't stop being married?
No, you stop being householders. You stop the frantic activity. You use the patience, titiksha, and the selflessness, seva, that you learned in school, to focus on higher truths.
Yeah.
You become the elders, the advisors.
It really pushes back against this idea that we need to be productive until the day we die. This says, no, you did your time, you learned the lessons, now enjoy the wisdom.
And here's the warning the text gives. If you try to stay in the school forever, if you're 75 or 80 years old and you're still obsessed with making more money, or you're still fighting those petty ego battles with your spouse, you haven't graduated.
You're the 80-year-old freshman.
You are repeating the grade. The system is designed for flow. You learn the lessons so you can leave the classroom and use the knowledge.
That is a haunting image, stagnation.
It connects everything back to that very first point we made. The marriage is the vehicle, not the destination.
Right. And sometimes vehicles break down. Sometimes people divorce. Does this philosophy say those people failed?
Not necessarily. Remember the metric. Did you learn? If a marriage ends, but you walk away understanding your ego better, understanding patience better, then the school did its job. You got the education, even if you didn't get the diploma from that specific institution.
It really reclaims your history. It frames every argument, every struggle, not as a sign that things are wrong, but as the lesson plan.
It's the syllabus you signed up for.
It's just such a comprehensive system. It takes the chaos of domestic life,
Yeah.
the messy kitchen, the silent treatment, the budget meetings, and turns it into a structured path for enlightenment.
It elevates the mundane. It says that the spiritual life isn't happening in a monastery somewhere else. It's happening right there in the living room while you're deciding what to watch on TV.
So to bring this deep dive home, we've walked the campus. We've seen that marriage is a gruhastashrama, a bridge of learning between the selfishness of youth and the wisdom of age. We've looked at the tough classes, smashing the ego, managing resources, channeling desire, and forging unity.
And we've seen the goal, to graduate, to stop the grind, and move into a season of wisdom.
So here's a thought I want to leave you with today. We all have that one thing in our relationship right now that is driving us absolutely crazy. That repeating argument, that one annoying habit your partner has, that source of friction.
Heat, the tapasya.
Exactly. Based on what we've learned today, try a thought experiment. What if you stopped wishing that friction would go away? What if you looked at that specific problem and said, this is not an error, this is the final exam for the class I'm currently in?
If that problem is a test designed specifically to crush your ego, how would you grade your own performance in class today?
A question worth asking. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you in the next class.
See you then.